Futurama may not have been as big as The Simpsons, but it sure did command a loyal following over its intermittent years on TV screens. A hilarious and beloved take on the future from Matt Groening and David X. Cohen, Futurama blossomed while Groening's other iconic sitcom, The Simpsons, was flagging. It was fresh, witty, and endlessly quotable, which ensured it managed to survive despite being faced with multiple cancellations over the years. As with most media though, there are things that even the most diehard of Futurama fans will have missed. Whether it's subtle on-screen clues or behind-the-scenes tales, there are all sorts of secrets to do with Futurama that have flown beneath the surface, including cancelled story concepts, crafty instances of foreshadowing, and even what-if tales of potential casting choices that never came to pass. It only makes the show even more fascinating to look back on, and while there are plenty of mind-blowing facts that have been covered previously, such as the show's hidden decipherable language, there are still plenty of concealed details that continue to elude audiences. So, in the spirit of channeling my best Futurama impressions, I'm VoiceBot5000, this is WhatCulture, and here are 10 Futurama secrets you never knew. Number 10. You can actually spot Nibbler in the pilot. Due to the fact that Futurama wasn't always aired in order, as well as the fact most fans discovered the series through syndication, it can sometimes be difficult to appreciate all the little hints the showrunners placed throughout the series that alluded to future story arcs. Take Space Pilot 3000, for instance, the series' debut episode where 20th century delivery boy Philip J. Fry cryogenically freezes himself supposedly by accident. If you look closely during that first episode though, you can actually see a familiar shadow next to the chair Fry falls off of. Later seasons would of course reveal that Fry was not taken to the future by accident, but instead by design. In a bid to defeat the evil brain spawn, the Niblonians, knowing that Fry lacked the Delta brainwave and so would be impervious to their attacks, because he did the nasty in the pasty with his own grandmother, went back in time and made it so he would come to the year 3000. It's also revealed that Nibbler was the one to push his chair into the freezing tube. By far the most wild thing about this is that the reveal didn't come for another 4 seasons, meaning that this was planned from the very start. Number 9. Leela's parents can also be seen before the reveal she's a mutant. Nibbler appearing in Futurama's pilot episode is pretty fantastic, but you know what's also pretty great? The fact the series pulled the same trick twice, this time with Leela's parents. Throughout the beginning of Futurama, it's taken as a given that Leela is an alien, and the only Cyclops left alive in the galaxy. The series doesn't ever really entertain the thought she might be a mutant even for a second, making the eventual reveal that her parents were mutants who left her to the service world a pretty seismic bombshell. However, if you were paying close attention, you'll realize that Leela's parents actually make a split-second appearance in the Season 2 episode I Second That Emotion, pictured here in the upper left corner. It's a blink and you'll miss it moment, but one that again illustrates the level of detail put into Futurama's more pivotal arcs. Number 8. The Brain Slugs were originally going to have a much bigger role. The Brain Slugs are frankly amazing. They appear in a couple of episodes, most notably A Head in the Polls and Raging Bender, and they're just hilarious. I don't know whether it's the cold delivery or what, but nothing gets better than hearing Full Lamar saying, "Thank you, it was cold down there on the floor." It's just kind of amazing. Also, you know what? I'm just gonna say it and say I wouldn't mind a brain slug every now and then. That way, the next time I read something stupid on the internet, I can just whap the old goopy boy on my noggin and hey presto, bliss and quiet, or a permanent nightmare. I kind of forgot about the nightmares. Well, anyway, there is something about Hermes that the Brain Slugs clearly find attractive, as they can be seen attached to him in those aforementioned 2 episodes, and even in the 2003 Futurama video game, which I only experienced through a demo disc. There was even a plan to have him be afflicted with a slug for all of Season 2, but those plans were shelved. Potentially even more interesting though is the fact that the Brain Slugs were originally meant to play a much bigger role in the series overall. According to David X. Cohen, the slugs would have been a threat throughout the show, dropping from ceilings onto unsuspected characters, and eventually even growing to encompass the size of someone's entire head. Ugh. Number 7. The reason for New York's owl infestation. In case you hadn't noticed, owls are kind of big in the future, not in an early 2010s OMG owls are so cute way, or of a oh my god the owls are taking over and they can't be stopped type thing. Owls are the pests of tomorrow in the world of Futurama, but they're more than just a stand-in for city pigeons or rats. There's an actual in-world reason behind their newfound pest status. Anyone who's stayed in a city will know that rats and pigeons can sometimes be a problem, and New York is no exception. In the world of Futurama though, it's revealed that NYC took to introducing wild owls into the ecosystem to deal with their pests. The program went horribly awry, however, as the owls proceeded to settle into the Big Apple and breed at an unprecedented scale, eventually changing their behavior from nocturnal predators to daytime scavengers. Number 6. What gives the HYPNOTOAD that distinctive noise? Obligatory all glory to the HYPNOTOAD comment out of the way first, and we can get on with the rest of this entry. Futurama's HYPNOTOAD was a small but hilarious inclusion to the show, with a tyrannical amphibian using their intense mind control powers to gain a permanent captive audience. A lot of the humor comes down to the fact that A, he's a toad, and B, his expression never changes, but arguably the best element of the gag comes down to the sound. You know, the one that's all... I mean, that kind of sounds like a foghorn, or a frog horn in this case, but look, I'm trying my best, okay? Well, turns out there's an actual story about how that noise came to be. The recording is actually the sound of a turbine engine being played in reverse, and it was initially a placeholder effect too. Number 5. Zap Brannigan was originally written for Phil Hartman. Sadly, a more tragic fact now. 2 of the greatest side characters in The Simpsons are Troy McClure and Lionel Hutz, both of whom were voiced by the late Phil Hartman. Hartman was a key member of Saturday Night Live throughout the 90s and starred in numerous films, including a memorable turn in Jingle All the Way and in the criminally underrated Small Soldiers. Known for his dry delivery and impressions, Hartman had stolen several episodes on The Simpsons, and so creator Matt Groening was determined to have him involved in his next show, which of course went on to be Futurama. Groening specifically wrote the part of Zap Brannigan for Hartman, with the actor preparing to voice the character in 1998 after auditioning for the part. Tragically, Hartman was murdered by his wife that same year. The part of Brannigan then went to Fry voice actor Billy West, who channeled the late comedian's voice in his portrayal. Number 4. Professor Farnsworth has a real-life namesake. More of a tribute than anything else, the inspiration behind Professor Farnsworth's name actually has real-life origins. According to the show's creators, Futurama's professor was actually named after a man called Philo T. Farnsworth, a television pioneer who also exhibited at the 1939 New York World's Fair, the same place that hosted a quote-unquote Futurama exhibit, which is obviously the namesake of the show too. Tellingly enough, Farnsworth appears as a head in a jar in Futurama, with the professor even remarking to Fry that Philo is one of their ancestors. Number 3. The reason behind the X in David Cohen's name. Matt Groening obviously deserves a lot of credit for developing Futurama, but equally, a lot of praise needs to go to David X. Cohen's way. Before Futurama, Cohen had written for both The Simpsons and Beavis and Butthead. When it came to developing the sci-fi series with Groening though, he had his work cut out for him. Cohen acted as a head writer on the show, as well as an executive producer and voice director. He was instrumental in its success, but did encounter a slight hiccup just before the series' pilot episode actually aired. Fox's primetime animated shows unionized around the time of Futurama's development, and the Writers Guild of America prohibited its members from using the same name. Seeing as how there was already a David S. Cohen around, Futurama's co-creator was thus forced to change his original middle name, Samuel, and replace it with something entirely different, eventually settling on X because, in his words, it sounded sci-fi-ish. Number 2. Where the celebrity heads in jars came from. It's easy to think that Futurama's heads in jars motif was developed specifically for the show, or even that it was a generic sci-fi trope before it arrived at the turn of the millennium. However, the actual inspiration behind Futurama's celebrity jar heads came in its sister series, The Simpsons, in 2 episodes from the show's 5th season. In both Rosebud and Bart Gets Famous, viewers are treated to 2 different versions of the future, one dystopian and the other almost Futurama-esque. At the end of Rosebud, where Mr. Burns pursues his pet Teddy Bobo until the end of time, the cantankerous old owner of the Springfield nuclear plant can be seen operating a robotic body, with his head being kept alive in a liquid-filled jar. Meanwhile, in Bart Gets Famous, the I Didn't Do It episode, we're treated to a nightmare Bart has where he's in the future appearing on a future episode of Match Game, joined by the floating head of one Kitty Carlisle. It's not full Futurama, but you can see Groening had the aesthetic for the series in mind even in 1994. And number 1, Ryan Stiles auditioned for the role of Fry. This one is something Whose Line Is It Anyway fans are going to love. To many, Ryan Stiles is one of the kings of improvisational comedy. Along with Colin Mockery, Greg Proops, and others, he helped make the UK version of Whose Line Is It Anyway a hit, before doing the same with Drew Carey's version in the US. Stiles is a definite highlight of the series, but he's not really done much outside of it apart from a couple of TV shows and films here or there. His cameo in Hot Shots Part 2 is something to behold. He definitely isn't one to have really done much voice work though, but but believe it or not, there was a time where he auditioned for the role of Fry during production on Futurama's first season. According to Billy West in an interview with Kevin Pollak, Stiles was one of many actors who went for the role of Fry but unfortunately didn't manage to nab the part. Granted, it would be difficult nowadays to picture anyone but West in the role, but still, that's a pretty awesome what-if scenario to contemplate. West also revealed that he auditioned for the role of Bender, but of course we know how that worked out, with John DiMaggio nailing the role that eventually launched his career into new heights altogether. And well, yeah, that was our list. Care to share any more? Let us know down in the comments below, and please don't forget to like, share, and subscribe if you haven't done so already. After that, you can go check out whatculture.com/TV for more lists like this on the reg, and then follow me on Twitter @YouRuinsThings. I hope you're all staying safe and well out there, and I'll see you next time. Bye!